This is Chaim. He was brought to us at 6 months of age. Look at his hand, which wasn't the worst part. He got a very severe torticollis and deformity to the back of his head that was unbelievably extreme, and couldn't lift his head up when he was on his belly because of the back was scoliotic and deformed too. Here he's already looking better. We've been working with him for a while, but we didn't do the DVD at that time. This is after a few months of work where he's able to lift his head, arch his back, and begin turning his head completely equally from side to side. Here I work with him. Chaim had no movement in his ankles and his feet, and actually his physician thought he might never get that. And here you can look at his right foot and see how spontaneously there's some movement there, quite a lot actually. And here look at his eyes, how much better they look. Both, first of all, are open more equally, but also more focused. His spine and rib cage were so distorted that he was unable to lift his head initially when he was on his belly. And here you can see how beautifully he's moving his wrist and his hand. And of course, he can start playing with toys. His head goes from side to side freely. I'm still working there because the rib cage and the spine grew so asymmetrically that we need to do something about it. Again, watch here. Joseph is working with Chaim. Watch Joseph working real delicately on Chaim's neck and how it gets him to start moving his ankles. And the child likes it. It doesn't bother him. And here, it's a couple, 3 months ago. Look how beautiful he looks, how he's on all fours now, how much more symmetrical the face is. People wouldn't be able to tell. He was so distorted and so deformed. And look how happy he is and intelligent and growing. And here he's with his rabbi father. And the whole family is doing so much better since he's doing better. This is Gus. He's 5 days old here. He was referred to us by a pediatrician. He has a pretty severe torticollis. His head is turned to the left, and Marcy's working with him. You see, he turns the head to the left, and then just a little past, but he doesn't really go to the right. Now, Marcy, as you can see, does not touch the neck, but works on the spine and the rib cage. And really, it's a communication with the nervous system through movement. And the infant, even though he's so little, he's paying attention to what is done with him. And as the current brain research shows, that movement with attention brings enormous changes in the brain very rapidly. Now look at the delicacy. Joseph is working on his ribs. Here I'm touching the head a tiny bit, but again, I will not do work on the neck directly, but work on the structures underneath it, so that because he doesn't have the problem there, and the brain doesn't know him any different. He was born like that. So I'm giving him the experience of being different. And you see, very delicately, I'm moving the spine in the back. And now here, very gently, once the spine and the rib cage can bend in this way symmetrically, I start having the head join it. Now here, look, he rolls over. In a minute, you'll see, and he does it. Here, Gus is 4.5 months old. He had very few lessons, probably not more than 10 or 12. And as you can see, he can already roll over, but still has a preference to move the head to the left. And what he really is not used to is move his eyes to the right. It's really his brain, his visual cortex has not developed that. So I'm using the toy to have his eyes move to the right, and then he's able to roll over and follow the toy, which is completely new to him. And within a few lessons after this one, he was doing so well that he didn't need any more lessons. This is Nolan. We started working with him when he was 3 months old. He had the brachial plexus injury to his shoulder. You're going to see first me, Anat, and then Joseph working with him, but I'd let the mother tell the story.
So this is Nolan. So he was born apparently not with an official diagnosis of it, but from what I understand, through understanding the injury, is a brachial plexus injury in his right shoulder from birth, apparently, at some point. So at birth, he wasn't moving it at all. And basically, I was told just to sort of wait 6 months and see if it it probably will recover spontaneously. And then at that point, at 6 months, if you still needed to do physical therapy. So I actually decided to do physical therapy with him right away, and it did, and also go to the chiropractor, and it was recovering, and it was doing well, but definitely still something of concern. And then of recent, the physical therapist told me that he would probably have to have surgery. The sooner the better, that kind of thing. And so that really freaked me out. So then I was referred to Anat, and then that was a few weeks ago, and I ended up getting in here, and he's recovered like almost 100%. So it's been basically a miracle for him.
We continued working with Nolan for a few more sessions, getting his head to come more to the middle. But within a short period of time, it became practically impossible, as you can probably see, to tell the difference between his right side, right shoulder, and his left shoulder. And at that point, the mother agreed that we can stop doing the lessons. This is Devorah. She's 8 weeks old, and she has a pretty severe brachial plexus injury to her left arm, which you don't see at this moment. This is her right good arm, and I am starting to work on the good arm because I want to establish the presence of the pattern of the movement of the arm in the nervous system, in the brain, before I will even go to the other side. Here it's about probably 7-8 minutes into the lesson. This is the very first time in her life that she's moving the arm independently. The arm was lying listless that's why you couldn't see it. So with the 8-week-old, she's already had 7 weeks of therapy. In 10 minutes, talking to the brain, so to speak, in an effective way. Look, the left arm, she's moving it against gravity, moving it for the first time, and moving it against gravity for the first time in her life. So I actually pretty much finished this lesson in 10 minutes because I figured she cannot do much more change than that. But I just show you a little bit more of this lesson. Now, in the beginning of the lesson, I kissed her right arm. So here, I start kissing her left arm. And look, she's bringing the arm as far as she can for me to kiss. And I will kiss it long before she does it perfectly. Now, this is Mary Lee. And as you can see, she's working on the rib cage in the back of the left arm and on the spine, because it's not only the left arm that gets affected. Actually, the structure, the growth of the bones, and the shape of the spine is affected. Now, once there is the representation of the left arm in the brain, which there wasn't there before, that's why all the exercise before didn't help, working directly on the arm is also useful. Here, I get her to feel her foot with her left arm, perhaps for the first time, and then simply work on the head, because also the development of the tonus of the muscles and the shape of the skull on the left and right side are a little different. Now look, that's her left arm. That's the baby that couldn't move her left arm at all. Now it's very hard to tell the difference. It's only in the rotation of the wrist that it's still a bit different. But once her brain recognizes there is a representation in the motor sensory cortex of her arm, this will work.
This is Megan. You're seeing a home video of her at about 3 months old. You see that she does not move the center of herself, very little movement in her arms and legs. Her eyes are crossed, but she is very interested in things going on around her. She has gotten some therapy, and her parents have been guided to do some exercises with her. At about 17 months old, Megan discovered the Anat Baniel method. She came to a free children's clinic and started doing lessons at the Anat Baniel Method Center of San Jose with Andrea Bowers and Alice Lucy. What you are seeing are some images from the lessons that Megan has received over the last 6 months. And you see that she's starting to be able to push up, to do a lot of babbling, play with toys, be able to move toward objects, and in general just come to life and start to be able to be a very good learner. Megan went for one lesson with Anat Baniel, and you can see from this first clip that her eyes are still crossed, and Anat worked extensively with her intentional looking and being able to target a toy. And by the end of the lesson, notice how she's looking around, obviously seeing and viewing things, and her eyes are tracking beautifully together. Megan continues to receive lessons at the Anat Baniel Method Center of San Jose, and she is just doing wonderfully.
This is Lucas. It's not his first lesson. I don't have recorded his first lesson. He was born with a heart defect, had 17 surgeries the first year of his life, and had a stroke during that year. When I got him, Lucas's CCS case manager warned me in a very friendly way to not expect Lucas to do much in the future. They pretty much have given up on him. He couldn't talk, couldn't sit very well. He certainly couldn't stand. He was terrified most of the time, certainly terrified of movement, and cried throughout his lessons. Here you see the progress. It's already way forward, but we got this outcome within the first probably 2-3 months of working with him. And once Lucas started moving, he really took to it. When you see his face, you can see quite a bit of distortion in the face still from the stroke. Today, which is a few years later, you can barely see any distortion in the face because the movement has become so much more symmetrical. Here, Lucas is able to get up with holding on to the hands of the father, and here, look, it's the very first beginning of Lucas stepping forward by himself. Lucas here has become more and more independent. He's a little over 3 years old, and initially what he could do is walk with his hands touching the wall. So I told the mother to do it because that's how his brain figured it out. And I knew that as he does it more and does more variations around it, which is another one of my essentials, he will figure out an independent way of walking, which obviously we can see he's doing here. Lucas' severe traumas from birth on for the first 2 years of his life has stopped the brain's ability to develop normally. Now he's doing amazingly well. He's talking. He's a regular school. I first saw Hannah over Thanksgiving when the parents came to visit family. She was about 6 months old. She had a brain lesion and paralysis and spasticity in the left arm and leg. She has had some therapy, but still wasn't moving her left arm. She responded to the lessons extremely fast and began moving her hand and opening it from time to time and start using the arm in relation to toys within a few sessions. Here she starts leaning on the left arm but still prefers to scoot, and you can see the progress is quite remarkable. It's a few months later and the head is able to be both to the right and the left, because when the arm is paralyzed, the head is moved to the other side. And here she's walking on her knees, and as you can see, as far as the crawling is concerned, she's completely taken off. She's able to climb steps. In other words, her nervous system is overcoming the limitations that she had due to the brain lesion. And see how when she walks here, her right arm is very free. She turns right, she turns left. She's very well balanced. In other words, the injury to the brain becomes absorbed by the enormous learning and acquisition of function around it. And of course, you can see she's using the left hand more and more, not equally to the right yet, but it's certainly quite remarkable given that it was completely paralyzed and non-existent for her and her brain. You see here's the right arm actually moved faster still than the left one, but look now, right, left. That means from the brain's point of view, the arms are becoming more and more equal representation and equal skill. And she's just doing magnificently well. This is Olivia. She had a couple of strokes in utero to the left side of her brain. She first was brought to an Anat Baniel method for children practitioner in Chicago, where she resides, and had extreme spastic paralysis to her right arm and right leg, was unable to crawl or stand or talk. I saw her around the age 2 for the first time. And here she's a bit older than 3, and as you can see, can already do a lot more, but still has quite a bit of difficulty shifting weight. When I saw her for the first time, she had enormous amount of fear because she had experiences in therapy where they tried to have her do things she was not ready to, and she felt she was falling. Now, as you can see, she can rock her pelvis here, use her lower back, and organize her movement, pushing me with her right hand. She began speaking, by the way, about after 3 or 4 lessons when I worked with her first. And now you can see how much more use she has of her right arm. And of course, it's magnificent to see her being able to begin riding a tricycle. And you can see the right wrist gets a little spastic, but then it gets free again. And here I'm still working with her ability to shift balance. Now she's coming up on the table all by herself and very proud of it. She's sitting tall and she's able to put her shoes or her flip-flops here on her foot by herself, which is quite remarkable given that we started working with her. She was already 2 years old and extremely paralyzed. And here you see a happy little girl that's taking dance lessons, doing everything in school, quite magnificent. This is Nora Kate. They come from New York City and they work there with Marcy Lindheimer, a practitioner of Anat Baniel method in New York. And she's about 2 years old and she can't stand or couldn't stand at this point and certainly couldn't walk. Now what you see me doing here is I realize that there's great limitation in her use of the lower back. That means the configuration, neural patterns of a connection between the head, lower back, hip joints, and feet weren't properly formed. Now you'll see that I very gently start to see if she could side sit, because in order to side sit, one side of the lower back has to arch. And she starts crying because, not because of pain, but when she was moved out of her familiar comfort zone, she got very upset. So I try to get the children not to cry. Certainly pain is not okay for me to have, but look here, she's crying, so that's partly why she's flexed, but she has no idea how to use her lower back. Here we go, I do it a little bit, and then the head goes down, and she starts moving actually. She starts crawling, which she couldn't do before either, but she has no idea how to lift her head or how to properly arch her back, and before she can do that, she will not be standing up.